I left the gym a little after lunchtime on that fateful Saturday. The Arizona sun beat down on the parking lot as I tugged off my sweaty trainer's shirt and tossed it in my duffel. Summer in Phoenix was unforgiving, but I'd grown used to it over 20 years living here. At 40, I was in the best shape of my life, broad shoulders, strong arms. Yet at that moment, I felt oddly weary. It wasn't the workouts with clients that drained me, but a nagging sense that something in my personal life was off. When I got home, the house was quiet. My two kids, Josh and Emily, were at a daytime summer camp, and my wife Lisa had left a note that she'd gone to meet a friend for lunch. I had the afternoon to myself, a rare slice of downtime. After a quick shower, I found myself puttering in the home office. There was a clutter of old papers and gadgets on my desk I'd been meaning to tidy up. As I sorted through a pile of USB cables and random chargers, I spotted a small black flash drive with a faded label, something I hadn't seen in ages. My heart lifted in mild surprise. I recognized the flash drive immediately. It was the one I thought I'd lost after our family trip to the Grand Canyon last year. We had taken countless photos of the kids with the red rock vistas, and I'd saved them on this very drive. Lisa and I had both looked everywhere for it months ago with no luck, and eventually I gave up and assumed it was gone for good. Yet here it was, hiding in plain sight behind a stack of old mail. Curious and happy to have found those lost vacation pictures, I plugged the drive into my laptop. It took a moment to load, and I tapped my fingers impatiently on the desk, already anticipating showing Josh and Emily the canyon photos later. The drive opened, showing a few folder directories. Sure enough, one folder was labeled Grand Canyon Family Trip. I clicked it, smiling as thumbnails of our smiling faces at the canyon rim filled the screen. It amazed me how much the kids had grown in just a year. Emily, now 10, was missing a couple of baby teeth back then, grinning gap-toothed at the camera on my shoulders. Josh, at 14, tried to look cool but couldn't hide his awe at the natural wonder behind him. I scrolled through the photos with a warm feeling of nostalgia. This was a happier time. Or at least, I thought it was. Back then, Lisa had been all smiles as well, posing with me and the kids, giving me quick kisses between shots. There was no hint of trouble that I could see. That thought gave me pause. Why was I even thinking about trouble? Maybe it was that recent distance in Lisa's behavior nibbling at my subconscious again. She had been busy and distracted for a while now, but I kept rationalizing it. Midlife stresses, maybe just the routine of a 15-year marriage. I shook off the dark thought and continued checking the drive. Besides the Grand Canyon folder, there were a few files on the root of the drive, likely miscellaneous documents or videos. One video file caught my eye immediately. It was simply named MOV00423.mp4, not descriptive like the others. The date stamp was from about 6 months ago, in January. That was odd. We hadn't taken any family videos then, at least none that I remembered saving. Maybe it was something Lisa had recorded on her phone and transferred. January. Around that time, I recall Lisa had gone on a girls' weekend to Las Vegas with her friend Marcy. She'd come back with just a few selfies and said they mostly relaxed at a spa. Perhaps she used my missing drive to store some footage from that trip. My curiosity piqued. I double-clicked MOV00423.mp4 to open it. It took a few seconds, then the screen filled with grainy footage of what looked like a hotel room. The camera was unsteady at first, as if whoever was holding the phone, I assumed it was a phone video, was setting it down on a table or dresser. I saw the king-size bed covered with crumpled white sheets and faintly heard laughter. Lisa's laughter. I froze, leaning closer and squinting to see the screen better. Lisa appeared on the video, sitting on the edge of the bed in a silk robe I didn't recognize. My heart began to race. The perspective changed when a male voice playfully asked, "Is this on?" The camera swayed and then stabilized, turning toward the bed. The man entered the frame, and my stomach twisted when I saw the stranger hugging my wife from behind. He was tall, a little older than me, maybe in his 40s with graying hair. I didn't recognize his face. A cold wave of shock washed over me, followed by a rush of nausea. I should have stopped the video right there, but I sat paralyzed, unable to look away from the betrayal unfolding on the screen. It wasn't some flirtatious joke or a harmless spa video. It was my wife cheating on me, in vivid detail right before my eyes. My ears rang. My vision blurred at the edges as searing rage mixed with an icy pain I had never felt before. For a moment, I was afraid I might literally be sick. I swallowed hard and forced down the bile. On screen, the pace of their movements quickened. I saw Lisa's nails dig into his back. I slammed the laptop lid down, unable to watch anymore. The room was silent again except for the thunder of my heartbeat in my ears. I sat there in the quiet office, staring blankly at the closed laptop. My reflection on the black screen looked back at me. Wide eyes, jaw clenched, a face I hardly recognized contorted with hurt and fury. My mind was reeling, trying to process what I'd just witnessed. Lisa, my wife, the woman I'd loved for 15 years, mother of our children, had been unfaithful. And not just unfaithful, but brazen enough to record her adultery as a sordid memento. On the flash drive containing our family memories, no less. 1,000 thoughts careened through my head. How could she do this? Who was that man? How long had this been going on? I felt an overwhelming urge to do something, anything. Scream, break something, confront her right this instant. My fists balled up tightly, knuckles white. For a moment, I imagined driving straight to wherever Lisa was lunching and throwing that damned laptop in front of her, making a scene for the whole world to see her shame. The thought of her face in that moment, caught and exposed, gave me a grim satisfaction for half a second. But I didn't move. Years of discipline from training and coaching kept me rooted. I hadn't gotten to where I was in life by losing my cool at the first punch. I was a trainer. I knew how to take a hit and stay standing. This hit was as personal as it gets, but I couldn't afford to respond recklessly. Not when our children's lives would also be affected by whatever came next. I forced myself to take several slow breaths, the way I coach clients to do when pushing through a tough set. In, out. Control the adrenaline, channel it. I needed clarity. I flipped the laptop open again, my hand shaking only slightly now. Steeling myself, I dragged the playhead of the video forward. I didn't want to watch the explicit parts, but I had to see if there was more. Something that could answer at least one of the million questions swirling in my head. The video had progressed to them lying tangled in sheets. Lisa's hair was a mess, her face flushed. The man was saying something in a low tone. I hit the volume up a notch. "He should do this again soon," he was saying, voice smug. He had a slight southern drawl. I burned the sound of it into my memory. Lisa swatted at him playfully. "You're insatiable," she laughed breathlessly. "Give me a minute, Mike." Mike. That one word hit me like another punch, so his name was Mike. I watched as Mike propped himself up on an elbow, his face now turned toward the camera. It was the first clear look at him I'd gotten. Sharp features, a neatly trimmed beard with flecks of gray, a confident grin. Definitely not someone I recognized personally. He brushed a strand of hair from Lisa's face. "Can't help it. Been wanting this for so long," he murmured. Then I heard him add, "Leave the husband. I'll take care of you." "You know that." I paused the video, my finger pressing down so hard I almost cracked the key. A ringing noise filled my head. So this wasn't just a meaningless fling or a one-night stand. This man wanted her to leave me. And from the way he said it, so casually certain, it sounded like they'd discussed it before. I realized my hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from devastation alone. It was from fury. They had been plotting a future together. Behind my back in hotel rooms, while I was taking care of the kids at home, trusting she was off on an innocent girls' trip, they were planning to destroy our family life and leave me in the dust. I closed the video file and ejected the flash drive, gripping it in my fist. I felt like I could crush the plastic casing into powder. My mind churned with a storm of emotions, betrayal, hurt, rage. But amid that storm, an idea began to form, solid and cold. Confronting her that very instant would feel gratifying, yes. I pictured her denial, her panic when I revealed the evidence, the tears or angry justifications that might follow. But then what? A screaming match? She'd know I had the video and she'd clam up or spin lies. If Mike was going to take care of her, maybe she'd plan to maneuver a divorce to her advantage. If I tipped my hand now, she and her lover could start covering their tracks, scheming to turn the tables on me. No, I had to be smart. This was war now. A war she and that bastard initiated in secret. I would not give them the benefit of a fair fight. If they wanted to take me down to throw away our life for their own selfish ends, then I'd turn every bit of that betrayal into fuel to utterly annihilate them. My breathing steadied as a grim resolve crystallized inside me. I set the flash drive on the desk gently. almost reverently, as if it were a fragile piece of evidence, which in truth it was. In that moment, I made a silent vow to myself I was going to make them pay. They thought I was just some clueless, docile husband, a simple guy who spends his days lifting weights and playing dad, oblivious to their machinations. They were about to learn that I could be far more cunning and merciless than either of them expected. But first, I needed a plan. A careful, thorough plan to protect what mattered and strike back where it hurt the most. I knew I couldn't do this blindly. I'd have to use my wits and every resource at my disposal. My mind was already whirring with the first steps, even as a solitary tear of anger, or was it heartbreak, traced down my cheek. I swiped it away roughly. I took one last look at the frozen video frame on my laptop, at the image of Lisa laughing in another man's arms. Something inside me went very still and cold at that sight, like a switch had been flipped. The love I once felt was buried under an avalanche of betrayal. I didn't feel love in that moment. I felt determination. If Lisa and Mike wanted a scorched earth outcome, I would oblige them, on my terms. I clicked the laptop closed, slipped the flash drive into my pocket, and walked out of the office with renewed purpose. My revenge had just begun. Strategic planning. Lisa arrived home about an hour later, while I was in the kitchen pretending to prep an early dinner. The moment I heard her keys jingling at the front door, my chest tightened. Stay calm, I reminded myself. Act natural. I had no idea how I managed to force a smile as she walked in, but I did. "Hey, honey," Lisa called out brightly. She stepped into the kitchen carrying a shopping bag in one hand. She looked radiant, as if she'd had a pleasant afternoon. The sight of her, the familiar cascade of chestnut hair, her friendly smile, felt like a knife twisting in my gut. How many times had I welcomed that smile after her outings, never suspecting it hid such betrayal? I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth and replied casually, "Hey, how was lunch?" "Good," she said, setting the bag on the counter. "Marcy and I tried that new bistro downtown. You'd love their dessert menu. I brought you a slice of cheesecake to try later." Lisa leaned up and gave me a peck on the cheek. I stiffened for a fraction of a second before I caught myself and turned it into a friendly side hug. I prayed she hadn't noticed my initial tension. My heart was pounding, but outwardly I kept my composure. "Cheesecake, huh? Sounds great, thanks." She went on cheerfully. "Yeah, it was nice to catch up with her. We might do a spa day next weekend." Her eyes met mine easily, no hint of guilt or nervousness. She was either an incredibly good actress or simply so secure in her deception that lying to my face came naturally. I forced a chuckle. "You deserve it. Been working hard lately." The words tasted like ash, but I delivered them earnestly. In truth, I was scanning her face for any sign of duplicity, a stray tremor, a guilty flicker in her eyes. There was nothing. Lisa looked like the same caring wife who'd kissed me goodbye this morning. It made my blood boil under the surface. "How was your day?" she asked, opening the fridge to fetch a bottle of iced tea. "Training go okay?" "Same old," I said with a shrug, leaning against the counter to appear relaxed. "I had a few sessions, then did some cleaning up around the house." "Mm-hmm." Lisa took a sip from the bottle and then nodded at the kids' chore chart pinned on the fridge. "We'll have to remind Josh to clean his room tonight. The camp bus was a mess this morning. He nearly forgot his lunch again." "I'll talk to him," I replied. Talking about mundane things, our kids' messy habits and lunchboxes, felt surreal while the image of Lisa entangled with another man was fresh in my mind. I bit down anger as I pictured how blasé she was, discussing our children while hiding this from us. She slid the cheesecake into the fridge. "I'm going to hop in the shower before the kids get home." She paused and gave me a warm smile. "Love you, babe." It was an automatic, affectionate goodbye, one I'd heard countless times. It took every ounce of willpower not to recoil. I managed a convincing, "Love you too," in return, then watched her walk down the hall toward our bedroom. As soon as I heard the master bathroom door close, my facade crumbled. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles went white, silently letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. That brief conversation had been one of the hardest things I'd ever done. Keeping myself in check, acting like the oblivious, loving husband. When I wanted to confront her with that video evidence right there, it was torture, but a necessary one. I needed Lisa to believe I was still in the dark, at least for a little while longer. If she suspected anything, she could begin hiding assets or concoct some story to turn others against me. No, until I had everything in place, I would wear the mask of the clueless husband. That evening, I continued the charade through dinner and bedtime with the kids. I listened to Emily excitedly recount her day at camp and helped Josh with a minor weightlifting routine he was trying out. He was eager to follow in his old man's fitness footsteps. All the while, Lisa was just there, acting as she always did, laughing at Emily's silly jokes, reminding Josh to drink water, kissing them goodnight. It made my skin crawl to see her play the role of doting mother and wife so well. I kept my interactions polite and brief. I worried that if I spoke too much, my voice might betray the anger simmering beneath. That night, once everyone was asleep, I finally had solitude to start executing the first steps of my plan. I quietly slipped out of bed under the pretense of needing a late-night snack, but instead I returned to my home office down the hall and locked the door. My hands were shaking slightly again, but this time it was anticipation fueling them. I powered up my laptop and inserted the flash drive once more. The hated video file was still there, of course, but I resisted the urge to delete it in disgust. This video was now my weapon, and I intended to wield it wisely. I copied the file onto my laptop's hard drive, then onto an external portable drive of my own. I even uploaded a copy to a secure cloud storage account I kept for important documents. If Lisa or anyone tried to destroy the evidence, they'd fail. I had multiple backups now, each stored safely. Once that was done, I carefully hid the original flash drive back where I'd found it. It was possible Lisa might come looking for it if she remembered using it. I wanted her to suspect nothing, so everything had to remain exactly as before. If she did discover it missing, she might panic. But if it was in its old spot among my clutter, she'd assume it was still lost and untouched. Let her keep thinking that. Satisfied that the evidence was secure, I opened a blank document on my laptop and began outlining the revenge campaign I was going to wage. I wasn't going to leave any aspect to chance or memory. I wanted a clear roadmap of what needed to be done. Step by step, I poured out my thoughts and strategies, organizing them as they formed. In the end, I compiled a list of immediate action items. Legal counsel, find a top-notch divorce attorney quietly. I needed someone ruthless and smart on my side, and I needed to consult them fast, preferably before Lisa even thought about filing anything. Financial security, protect my assets. That meant separating our finances as much as legally possible, canceling any joint credit lines, and ensuring Lisa couldn't secretly siphon money out of our accounts once she realized what was happening. Intel on Mike. Identify and investigate Mike. Who exactly was this man who thought he could steal my wife and upend my life? I needed his full name, background, and any vulnerability I could exploit, be it a wife of his own, a public reputation, or a career I could jeopardize. Gather more evidence. The video was damning, but more evidence of their affair could strengthen my position. If this was ongoing, catching them in the act again or collecting phone records, texts, or financial receipts could prove useful both legally and for the court of public opinion. Safeguard kids. Ensure the children's well-being and prepare for a custody battle if it came to that. I would not let Lisa use Josh and Emily as pawns or, worst case, take them away from me. If she truly wanted the new life with Mike, I doubted that life had much room for our kids, but I wasn't about to let them be harmed by her choices either. Stealth and secrecy. Maintain the element of surprise. Until I was ready to pull the trigger on my plan, Lisa and her lover should have no hint that I knew about them. My every move needed to be discreet. Reviewing my list, a steely confidence settled over me. I had transformed my hurt into actionable objectives. It felt almost like devising a training program for a client. Identify the goal, break it into parts, and attack each part relentlessly. In this scenario, the goal was to protect myself and the kids, and to make Lisa and Mike face the consequences of their betrayal, legally and socially. First on the list was legal counsel. I recalled that one of my longtime personal training clients, Alan Ridgway, was a well-connected attorney in town. Family law wasn't his specialty, but he'd once mentioned his sister was a prominent divorce lawyer. If anyone could refer me to a killer divorce attorney, it would be Alan. I glanced at the time, 10:30 p.m. on a Saturday. Too late to call now, but I decided I'd ring Alan first thing Sunday morning to get that recommendation and maybe even set up a meeting for Monday. Time was critical. I wanted to be the one to file first, before Lisa could even think of blindsiding me. Next, financial security. I logged into our online banking to review accounts. As far as I could tell, nothing seemed amiss yet. Our joint checking and savings still had the funds I expected, and there were no large, unexpected withdrawals. If Lisa had any secret accounts or had been funneling money out, I didn't see evidence of it immediately. However, I did see a charge from 6 months ago on our credit card statement that made my teeth grind. A hotel charge from the Bellagio in Las Vegas dated January 15th, right around the time of her girls' weekend. It was several $100s. She had told me that Marcy got a great deal on their Vegas hotel and covered the room with her travel points. That was obviously a lie. She put the hotel charge on our card, probably assuming I wouldn't notice among other expenses. It was galling to realize I had unknowingly financed my wife's illicit getaway. I printed the statement highlighting that line item. Evidence of marital waste, spending community money on an affair, could potentially help in the divorce. I made a note to myself to comb through more financial records later for other anomalies. Dinners, gifts, anything that might have been for him. Though it was late, I also opened a new bank account online solely in my name at a separate bank, something I could fund later with my portion of assets. It was just preparation. I didn't actually move any money yet. That would come right before I went nuclear with the plan. For now, I wanted the mechanism in place. With the immediate financial checks done, I turned my attention to intel on Mike. I kept hearing that southern-tinged voice saying, "Leave the husband. I'll take care of you." The arrogance of that line made my blood simmer. Who was this guy who thought he could take care of my wife? I replayed the video in my mind, focusing on his face, his voice, and any details I noticed in that hotel room. He looked a bit familiar, I realized. The way he carried himself, that self-satisfied smirk. Where had I seen him before? Phoenix is a big city, but sometimes local big shots make their faces known. Did I know a Mike around 50 with salt and pepper hair? Then it clicked. Mike Caldwell. I snapped my fingers softly. Could it be him? Caldwell was a name you'd see on billboards around town, the owner of Caldwell Cadillac, a luxury car dealership chain in Arizona. The man in the video certainly matched the basic description. Middle-aged, fit for his age, salt and pepper hair. Mike Caldwell also had that confident swagger whenever he appeared in his dealership's cheesy TV commercials. He liked to star in them himself. I'd always found those ads annoying, but I'd remember that face and voice anywhere. I wasn't 100% certain yet, but my gut told me I was right on the money. And if I was right, that opened up a trove of information. I did a quick online search for Mike Caldwell. Within seconds, I found the Caldwell Cadillac website with a slick photo of the owner welcoming customers. Staring back at me was the man from the video, cleaned up in a suit and tie, but undeniably him. The site mentioned he was the CEO of Caldwell Automotive Group, with dealerships in Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Tucson. A prominent businessman indeed. Another search brought up a local news article about a charity gala Mike Caldwell had attended last year. There was a photo of him with a stylish blonde woman identified as his wife, Karen Caldwell. So, Mike was married. I couldn't help but smirk at the irony, two cheating spouses, carrying on their affair behind two unsuspecting partners. Only now one of those partners, me, was clued in. As tempting as it was to march up to the Caldwell's mansion and hand Karen a copy of the video right then, I held back. That move would be satisfying, but it had to be timed right. Karen Caldwell could be a powerful ally or a wild card. If she was anything like how I felt, she would be furious and might confront them immediately. I couldn't risk her tipping off Mike, and by extension Lisa, before I had all my ducks in a row. Still, I made a note. Once I was ready to drop the bomb, I would make sure Karen knew. She deserved to, and her reaction would no doubt contribute to Mike's misery. It was nearly 1 a.m. by the time I closed my laptop. My eyes burned from the screen, and my muscles were tight with tension. But I felt more prepared than I had just a few hours ago. I had a plan outlined and had begun taking concrete steps. Tomorrow, I'd secure legal counsel and possibly bring a private investigator on board to aid in gathering evidence. The groundwork was set. Before leaving my office, I quietly opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a small, fireproof safe I kept there. Inside were important documents. Our marriage certificate, the kids' birth certificates, passport copies, and so on. I sifted through to ensure everything was in order. If things got ugly, I might need these, and I didn't want Lisa conveniently misplacing anything. I also found the old digital voice recorder I used for occasional training session notes. I placed it on the desk, inserting fresh batteries. Arizona was a one-party consent state for recordings. As long as I was part of a conversation, I could legally record it. That little device might come in handy soon if I ended up in any verbal showdowns with Lisa or Mike. Better to have their words on tape. Locking the safe and stashing the recorder in a desk drawer for easy reach, I finally allowed myself to exhale. Stage 1 of my plan, strategic planning and safeguarding, was underway and progressing well. I was exhausted, but I knew this was just the beginning. As I crept back into bed beside my wife, who was fast asleep, I stared at the ceiling in the darkness. It struck me how much my life had changed in the span of a single day. Just that morning, I was a loyal husband who would have never imagined sleeping next to a stranger. Now, I felt like I was lying beside an enemy combatant, a target in the war I was gearing up to fight. In the silent vow I made to myself, I promised that by the time I was done, Lisa and her lover would lose everything they so casually gambled in their affair. They wanted to betray and destroy the life we built? Fine. I'd show them how destruction truly looked. With that cold comfort, I shut my eyes and let a few hours of restless sleep take me, preparing for the battles yet to come. Digging deeper, I appreciate you meeting me on such short notice. I sat in a plush leather chair across from Margaret Duval, a highly recommended divorce attorney that Alan had connected me with. It was Monday morning, and the downtown Phoenix law office felt cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the turbulence in my life. Margaret gave a professional smile. Of course, Mr. West. I noted with some dark humor that she addressed me by my last name. Soon enough, I'd be shedding Lisa's last name from my life. Alan gave me a heads up. Why don't you start by telling me what's going on and what you hope to achieve? I took a breath and succinctly laid out the situation. My wife's affair, the flash drive video evidence, and my intent to file for divorce and secure custody of our children. I kept my tone measured, channeling my anger into factual details. Margaret listened attentively, occasionally jotting notes. When I finished, she looked up, her expression a mix of sympathy and steely resolve. "First, I'm sorry you're going through this," she said. "Infidelity is a painful betrayal. The good news, if I can call it that, is you found out before things like finances and custody could be stacked against you. We have the element of surprise on our side." I nodded. That was exactly what I was banking on. Margaret continued. Arizona is a no-fault divorce state, which means the court won't punish your wife legally for infidelity when it comes to dividing property or awarding alimony, except in certain circumstances, like if marital assets were spent on the affair. However, evidence of the affair can still be a powerful tool. We can use it to negotiate from a position of strength. And if she tries to lie or paint you as the bad guy, that video becomes valuable to refute those claims and show her character. What about custody? I asked. This part worried me most. We have a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old. I want primary custody. Lisa can have reasonable visitation. I'm not trying to eliminate her as their mother. But I won't accept anything that puts the kids primarily with her, especially if she's planning to integrate them into a life with this Mike guy. Margaret folded her hands. Family courts here decide custody based on the best interests of the child. Adultery per se doesn't disqualify someone from being a custodial parent, but if her affair negatively impacted the children, like neglecting them to meet him, or if he's a harmful influence, we can raise that. Also, judges don't look kindly on parents who use kids as pawns or lie in court documents. If she tries any dirty tricks, we will respond in kind. From what you've told me, you've been the active, present parent. If she's been checked out or planning to leave the kids behind, that could play in our favor. I felt a little relief at her words. I suspect this man doesn't really want my kids around, I admitted. Just a hunch from what I heard him say. If push comes to shove, Lisa might actually relinquish more custody to be with him. But I want to be prepared if she tries to fight out of spite or greed. Margaret gave a thin smile. Understood. We'll prepare for a custody fight, but often these situations settle. Many cheating spouses would rather avoid a messy public court battle, especially if one party has damning evidence. Our goal will be to give her an easy out, agree to our terms quietly, or face humiliation in court. I liked the sound of that. So what are our next steps? I asked. I'll get started drafting the divorce petition today, she said, flipping open a calendar. We'll cite irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. That's standard. We can request temporary orders for issues like maintaining the status quo in finances and custody while the divorce is pending. That means she can't empty accounts or run off with the kids once she's served. The court usually grants those quickly if there's even a hint someone might do something rash. I felt gratitude for having a competent professional guiding me. I have our financial statements here, I said, patting a folder I'd brought. Also, I have the video if you need to see it. Just mentioning it made my stomach clench. Margaret held up a hand gently. That won't be necessary right now. Just knowing the gist is enough. Save it as our ace. I'll let opposing counsel request it if they dare. She scribbled a few more notes. Now, about serving her. Once I file, we'll need to formally serve Lisa the papers. Do you have a particular time or place you want that done? Sometimes clients have preferences, for instance, not in front of children. I had already thought about this. I don't want the kids to see that, no. I paused, considering my options. Lisa's planning a spa day this Saturday with her friend, except I'm pretty sure she's actually meeting him. If that rendezvous happens, it might be satisfying to have her served in front of him. I couldn't help the slight vindictive edge in my voice. Margaret raised an eyebrow and gave a small chuckle. That would be dramatic. But let's be strategic. Serving her when she's with him could cause a scene, yes, and it might also tip him off and send them scrambling. We should be ready to serve him with something too, if possible, so he doesn't get the chance to hide assets or pressure her to fight dirty. Is he married, do you know? He is, I confirmed. His wife's name is Karen. I plan to inform her of the affair as well. I have evidence that would interest her. Margaret nodded approvingly. Allies can be invaluable, though we can't coordinate directly with his wife's actions. If she also files for divorce or takes him to the cleaners at the same time, it certainly puts extra pressure on him and your wife. Just be careful. Once we set this in motion, things will move fast. Make sure you have everything you truly care about secured by then. Personal items, keepsakes, anything you wouldn't want broken or lost in a potential confrontation. Sometimes anger leads people to do stupid things. I thought of the family photo albums, my personal mementos from my late parents. Stuff I'd never want to lose. I'll take care of it, I said, adding a mental note to maybe move some precious items to my gym locker or to my brother's place for a while. After about an hour of consultation and paperwork overview, I left Margaret's office feeling more empowered. The petition would likely be ready to file within a day or two. We agreed she'd hold off filing until I gave the green light, so I could synchronize my other moves, like telling Karen Caldwell and arranging service for Mike, perhaps via Karen or otherwise. I walked out into the bright mid-morning sun, determined and a little anxious. The legal gears were about to turn. The next few days were all about intelligence gathering and finalizing preparations. On Monday afternoon, after a few phone calls, I hired a reputable private investigator, Tom Garcia, to assist me. Tom had come recommended through a friend of a friend, and after I explained the basics, wife cheating, need evidence, and possibly tracking of her and the other man, he agreed to discreetly tail Lisa during her upcoming spa day and any other suspicious outings. I gave him Mike Caldwell's name and description too, in case it helped to track their meeting spots. I also took a bit of tech into my own hands. On Monday night, I carefully attached a small GPS tracker device under the rear bumper of Lisa's car. It was a magnetic tracker with a long battery life linked to a phone app. If she went somewhere unexpected, I'd know. The irony of sneaking around behind her back wasn't lost on me, but unlike her, I felt no guilt. This was war, and I'd do what I must. Tuesday passed with painstaking slowness. I went through my routine at the gym, training clients with my usual focus, but inside I was constantly checking my phone's tracker app. No unusual movement. Lisa's car went to her workplace. She worked part-time as an office manager at a dental clinic, and then came home as usual. No sign of rendezvous with Mike that day. That evening, Tom, the PI, called with an update. He'd done some preliminary digging on Mike Caldwell. Your hunch was right. You'll wait to see, Tom said. Caldwell's definitely seeing your wife. I staked out his dealership for a bit. He left early today and drove not towards home, but towards the general direction of your neighborhood. I felt my pulse quicken. He didn't meet her today. Her car was at work, then home, I said. Tom cleared his throat. Actually, I think they're being careful. There's a coffee shop halfway between his dealership and the clinic your wife works at. One of my guys spotted a woman matching Lisa's description in a booth there around 5 p.m., and Caldwell was seen leaving the same shop about 20 minutes earlier. They likely met briefly and staggered their departures. The thought of them orchestrating little coffee dates under my nose made my jaw tighten. Thanks for the intel, Tom. Keep on them. The big one will be Saturday's spa day meet. I want photos if possible. He assured me he'd have his team ready. Late that night, after Lisa was asleep, I carefully went through her phone. Luck was on my side. She had a habit of leaving it charging on the kitchen counter, and I knew her passcode. It was our anniversary date, of all things. Heart pounding, I scrolled through her messages. As expected, there was nothing incriminating in her regular SMS texts. She likely deleted those, but she had WhatsApp installed. Opening it, I found exactly what I was looking for. A chat with someone saved under the innocuous name M. Her conversation with M only went back a week. She probably cleared it regularly. But what was there made my blood boil anew. M, can't wait to see you this Saturday. Got us the suite this time. Lisa, looking forward to it. I'll tell him I'm doing an all-day spa with Marcy back in the evening. M, perfect. Hopefully soon you won't need these little excuses. We'll have all the time in the world. Lisa, soon, darling. Just a couple more things to sort out. I almost crushed the phone in my hand. All the time in the world. They truly were planning a life together openly. And Lisa's couple more things to sort out. Was that referring to me and our kids? Likely finishing the process of discarding us. I took photos of the screen with my own phone for documentation. Here was proof that the upcoming spa day was a lie, and that they were deep into planning a future. Also, interestingly, Lisa's tone was reassuring him soon. Perhaps Mike was pressuring her to hurry up and leave me, and she was trying to keep him patient. That was a dynamic I could exploit. Maybe there was tension between them on how fast to push things. One more thing in that chat caught my eye as I scrolled up slightly. There was a photo sent last week from Mike. A picture of a diamond necklace with the text, "For you soon." So, he was showering her with gifts already, or promises of them. I saved that image too. That necklace might have been bought on his credit card. Who knows, maybe his wife would notice a big jewelry expense. More fuel for the fire. By Wednesday, I felt we had enough to move. The divorce petition was drafted and ready. Margaret and I coordinated. We would file it on Friday morning at the courthouse. Lisa would be served Friday evening or Saturday morning at the latest. I'd prefer Saturday at the hotel when she was with Mike for maximum impact, but we had to see the logistics and ensure the kids were out of the crossfire. I arranged for the kids to have a sleepover at my sister's house Friday night through Saturday. Thankfully, my sister lived nearby and loved having them over. I told Lisa that I had an early Saturday training workshop across town, another lie, but necessary, and suggested the kids could have a fun night with their aunt. She readily agreed. Why wouldn't she, since it cleared her schedule to be with her lover? Everything was lining up. Still, I wanted one more piece of the puzzle. Direct evidence of their Saturday meetup. On Friday, using the GPS tracker, I watched Lisa drive to work, then later come home as normal. She was all smiles that evening, talking about the spa treatments she had booked. I played along, even massaging her shoulders as she joked she needed to be loose for her massages tomorrow. The gall of this woman. Saturday dawned at last. Lisa left the house at 9 a.m., dressed in casual luxe athleisure as one might for a spa day, but I noted she took an overnight bag for her change of clothes after the treatments, she claimed. As soon as she drove off, I checked the tracker. Sure enough, she wasn't heading to her friend Marcy's place or any spa. The dot moved westward, toward a resort hotel on the outskirts of Phoenix. Tom, the PI, was already in position near the Desert Horizon Resort, a swanky hotel spa resort where, coincidentally, Caldwell Automotive Group had sponsored charity events before. It made sense they'd choose a place outside our immediate neighborhood for privacy. At 9:45 a.m., Tom texted me an update. Target acquired. They met in the parking lot. Got pictures of them kissing. She's wearing a big sun hat trying to be low-key, LOL. Now walking into resort together, arms around each other. I read the text, then looked at the photo that came with it. Despite the rage twisting in my stomach, I felt a grim satisfaction. The photo showed Lisa and Mike in a clear embrace by her car, his lips on hers. She indeed wore a floppy sun hat and oversized sunglasses, but it was undeniably her. Time-stamped and indisputable. They looked for all the world like a pair of lovers on a romantic getaway. I forwarded that photo to Margaret, my attorney, with a note. "This is happening now, serving tomorrow?" She responded quickly. "Filing petition now. Process server on standby for tomorrow a.m. at resort." Confirmed room number with PI? I relayed the question to Tom, who soon confirmed that he'd tailed them through the lobby. A desk clerk was greased enough to slip him the info that Mike Caldwell had booked the Honeysuckle Suite for Friday night. Through Sunday morning, perfect. My heart pounded not with anxiety now, but with anticipation. The trap was set. The divorce petition would be officially filed by end of day today, Friday. By tomorrow morning, Lisa would be served with papers right in the cozy confines of her love nest. And Mike Caldwell would receive his own legal shockwave, likely from his wife if things went according to what I was about to set in motion. It was time for the endgame to begin. Springing the trap. Early Sunday morning, I found myself standing in the quiet hallway of the Desert Horizon Resort's top floor, my heart pounding with cold purpose. Next to me stood Karen Caldwell. Her face was pale but composed, a storm brewing in her blue eyes. We had decided to do this face-to-face, both of us refusing to let our cheating spouses slink away unscathed. The events of the previous afternoon had been a whirlwind. After receiving the PI's photographic evidence on Saturday, I contacted Karen. I'd wrestled with the decision for a few hours, but ultimately, I knew she deserved to know and that we could help each other. I called her anonymously first to ensure she was home and not with Mike. Once I confirmed Mike was still at the resort, thanks to Tom's updates, and that Karen was alone, I drove to the Caldwell residence in an upscale Scottsdale neighborhood. Karen answered the door with a polite, if puzzled, smile that quickly vanished when I introduced myself. "I'm Jack West, Lisa's husband," I said quietly. I saw the recognition and growing dread in her eyes as she realized this was not a social call. I had brought a manila envelope containing a few choice pieces of evidence. A still frame from the video showing Lisa and Mike in bed, cropped to be suggestive but not too explicit, and the photo from the resort parking lot that morning. We sat in her tasteful living room as I gently explained why I was there, then handed her the envelope. "I'm sorry to show you this, but I thought you should know. Mike and my wife have been having an affair." Karen's hands shook as she pulled out the contents. The color drained from her face when she saw the images of her husband with my wife. She didn't scream or cry immediately. Instead, a steely calm settled over her, a reaction I instantly respected. "Thank you for telling me," she said in a low, controlled voice, though her eyes were glassy with restrained tears. "I had suspicions, late meetings, odd expenses, but I never imagined—" She trailed off, swallowing hard. After a deep breath, she asked, "They're together now?" I nodded. "At the Desert Horizon Resort in a suite. They'll be there until this morning." I also informed her that I had filed for divorce and that Lisa would be served imminently. Karen absorbed all of this and then surprised me by reaching out to grip my hand. "We need to make them face the consequences," she said, voice tight with determination. "I want to be there when my husband is served, and I want him to see that I know." Which is how we ended up here on a quiet Sunday at 7 a.m., outside the door of the Honeysuckle Suite. The resort hallway's plush carpeting muffled our steps. In the distance, I could hear the soft hum of a vacuum as housekeeping started their rounds. I had arranged for a professional process server to meet us at 7 on the dot. Sure enough, a tall woman in a neat pantsuit approached, confirming she had documents for Lisa West. She also had, at my request, a second envelope, one that Karen had urgently prepared last night after consulting her own lawyer. Divorce papers for Mike Caldwell. She was not going to wait another minute. We all paused outside the door numbered 512. I could feel adrenaline lighting up my veins. I wasn't sure if Lisa and Mike were awake yet. They might still be asleep in each other's arms, blissfully unaware of the reckoning about to crash down on them. I exchanged a glance with Karen, who gave a firm nod. The process server knocked briskly on the door. For a few seconds, nothing. Then we heard faint movement, and Lisa's voice from within. Mike, room service maybe? My jaw set at the sound of her casual tone. A moment later, the door unlocked and swung open a few inches. Lisa stood there in a plush white hotel robe, her hair tousled, eyes still heavy with sleep. She wasn't wearing her hat or glasses now. She clearly assumed no one but staff would see her. The process server spoke up immediately, professional and loud enough for any occupant to hear. Lisa West? Lisa blinked in confusion, then instinctively pulled the robe tighter. Yes? She said uncertainly, clearly off guard at seeing a stranger. And then her eyes flickered past the server and landed on me standing just to the side. The blood drained from her face. Jack, she gasped, voice cracking. Her stunned expression might have been almost comical in other circumstances. For a split second, we just stared at each other. Her caught in the act, me catching her. Before she could slam the door, the server thrust the envelope forward. Lisa West, you've been served, she said firmly, letting the papers fall against Lisa's chest and into her trembling hands. Lisa made a small, strangled sound. She hadn't fully processed my presence when another figure appeared behind her. Mike. He had thrown on a pair of pants and a half-buttoned shirt, and his face bore an annoyed frown as he called out, Honey, who is it? As soon as he stepped into view, he froze. His gaze first landed on me, then shifted to Karen standing beside me. I watched the colors and confidence drain out of Mike Caldwell's face so fast it was almost gratifying. Karen, Mike blurted in disbelief, his voice rising an octave. Karen stepped forward, chin high. In her hands was the second envelope. Good morning, Mike, she said coldly. Surprised to see me? Without waiting for an answer, she extended the envelope toward him. Michael Caldwell, you've been served as well. Her voice was ice. Mike's eyes widened. What the hell is... he spluttered, refusing to reach for the documents. The process server cleared her throat. Sir, these are divorce papers. It's in your best interest to accept service, the server said. When he still didn't move, Karen stepped forward and simply let the envelope drop at his feet. We're done, Mike, she said, her composure beginning to crack as anger and hurt bled into her voice. 20 years of marriage, and this is how you end it? With a sleazy affair in a hotel? I saw tears glistening in her eyes now, though she held her posture stiff. I hope it was worth it. Lisa finally found her voice. Jack, please, she started, stepping forward as if to reach for me. Her eyes were huge, pleading. She looked utterly shocked and disheveled. It was a far cry from the confident, deceitful woman who had kissed me goodbye just days ago, thinking I was oblivious. I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. All the betrayal and anger I'd held back now hardened my voice. Don't, I snapped quietly. It's too late for explanations or excuses, Lisa. You made your choices. I gestured to the envelope in her hands, which she was clutching with white knuckles. Read them. It's over. Jack, let's talk about this privately, please, Lisa stammered, tears now spilling down her cheeks. She glanced warily at Karen and the server, and even over her shoulder at Mike, who looked like a cornered animal. This isn't what it looks like. I mean, she stopped, realizing the absurdity of that statement as it left her lips. It was exactly what it looked like. Instead, she tried a different angle, her voice cracking. Think of the kids. At the mention of our children, a lava-hot fury roiled in my chest. You mean the kids you lied to yesterday so you could come here? I hissed, keeping my voice low but venomous. I've been thinking of them every second since I found out about this, Lisa. Unlike you. She flinched as if slapped. Mike, who had been silent in shock, finally spoke, apparently deciding to bluff some control back. All right, this has gone far enough, he barked, attempting a tone of authority that didn't quite mask the quiver underneath. He stepped forward, trying to put himself between Lisa and me in the doorway. Jack, is it? And Karen. Let's all just calm down and talk like adults. Despite his disheveled appearance, he tried to muster a patronizing smile. There's no need to ruin both families over this. We can come to some understanding. Ruin? Karen interjected with a bitter laugh. Oh, Mike, you accomplished that all by yourself. She jabbed a finger toward the suite's interior. You ruined our family the moment you brought his wife into that bed. And as for understanding, the only understanding I have is that I wasted 2 decades on a liar. Mike's face flushed with frustration. He turned to me, perhaps thinking he could reason man to man. Jack, look, this is just a misunderstanding that got out of hand. I'm sure we can... I cut him off sharply. A misunderstanding? You pursued my wife for months, if not longer. I watched you on video telling her to leave me. So don't you dare insult my intelligence by calling it a misunderstanding. My voice was as cold as I'd ever heard it. The only thing out of hand here is how badly you both betrayed your spouses. And now, you'll face the consequences. Mike's veneer of suave confidence cracked completely then. His eyes hardened and he sneered. You think you're going to come out on top here? Do you know who I am? I can bury you in legal fees. Drag this out. I stepped forward through the doorway, closing the gap so quickly that Mike instinctively recoiled. I was a few inches taller than him and in far better shape. He suddenly remembered that fact as I loomed over him. I heard Lisa suck in a breath and she tugged at Mike's arm, as if warning him not to provoke me. In a very low voice, full of controlled menace, I said, You're welcome to try, Mike, but ask yourself this. How will it look when the press hears about why your wife is divorcing you? About the video evidence of you screwing a married woman? I allowed myself a tight, icy smile as I saw his bravado fade. He was a public figure in certain circles, and the last thing he'd want is scandal. I have plenty of evidence, and I'm prepared to use it in court. Are you? He fell silent, jaw working as he struggled to find a response. I didn't give him the chance. And another thing, I added, leaning in just enough. If you ever try to threaten me or my family again, I'll show you just how little your money means. Understood? My muscles were coiled with tension. It took effort not to do something more than just talk. But I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes as he realized I was not bluffing. Mike nodded stiffly, his arrogance deflated. I stepped back, exhaling slowly to steady myself. The process server, who had wisely stayed quiet during the showdown, finally spoke up. Ma'am, sir, she addressed Lisa and Mike, you've been officially served. Have a good day. With her duty done, she hurried off down the hall, eager to be away from the drama. For a moment, the four of us remained there in a charged silence. Lisa wiped at her face, mascara beginning to smear. Jack, she began softly, her voice dripping with regret. I'm so sorry, I didn't let her finish. Sorry you got caught, I said, my tone flat. I felt oddly calm now, as if delivering those blows had purged the worst of my anger, leaving a cold certainty. I'm done, Lisa. My lawyer's contact information is in the paperwork. Use it for any communication. From now on, speak to me only about the children, and even that will be through lawyers if necessary. She looked as if I'd slapped her. Please, we can figure something out, she whimpered, but I could tell even she didn't believe her own words at that moment. Behind her, Mike had slumped against the door frame, rubbing a hand over his face as Karen's fiery glare bore into him. Karen finally turned her attention fully to Lisa, eyeing her with contempt. And you, she said, voice sharp as a razor. I welcomed you into my home at charity events. I chatted with you at those company parties. God, our friends all know you. How could you do this? There was genuine hurt and bafflement in her question. Lisa opened her mouth, but no sound came. What excuse could she possibly have? Instead, she just broke down in sobs, covering her face. I felt nothing but a distant pity, not for her, but for the fact that our children would see their mother like this one day. Pull yourself together, Lisa, I muttered. This is only the beginning. Save the tears for the judge, maybe he'll believe them. Karen had said what she needed. She turned to me and gently touched my arm. Jack, I think we're done here. Her voice softened, exhaustion creeping in. I nodded. We'd delivered the shock and awe we came to deliver. Without another word, I turned and walked away down the hall, Karen by my side. Behind us, I could hear Lisa's choked sobs and Mike's low voice as he likely tried to console her amidst his own panic. But that was not my concern anymore. They had each other, for now anyway. Let them pick up the pieces of their shattered fantasy. Karen and I stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, her stoic facade finally crumbled a bit. She let out a shuddering sigh and a tear rolled down her cheek. I offered her a handkerchief from my pocket. Thank you, she whispered, dabbing at her eyes. She looked at me, attempting a sad smile. That was intense. I nodded, leaning back against the elevator wall. I suddenly felt immensely drained. Yeah. After a moment, I added, I'm sorry that you had to go through this, but I'm glad we handled it together. Karen gave a resolute little nod. They brought this on themselves. She drew a shaky breath. I'm going to be okay, you know. It's a lot, but I have good lawyers, and I have my dignity. He can't take that. I could see her steel returning as she spoke. Same here, I replied quietly. There's a long road ahead, but at least the worst lies are exposed. When the elevator reached the lobby, we parted ways with a shared look of understanding. No further words were needed. We'd both just lost something in that hotel, but we'd also reclaimed our self-respect. As I walked out into the morning sun in the parking lot, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The confrontation was over. The truth was out in the open. But the battle was just beginning. Lisa and Mike were about to learn that betrayal's consequences don't end with a single confrontation. They were about to face an all-out war on every front they valued. Scorched earth. The days and weeks following the hotel confrontation were a blur of legal battles, strategic moves, and emotional upheavals. I had promised myself a war, and a war is exactly what unfolded. One fought in courtrooms and conference rooms rather than on the streets, but no less intense. On Monday morning, I sat down with Margaret, my lawyer, to map out our next steps. Lisa had already hired an attorney of her own over the weekend, no doubt bankrolled or recommended by Mike in a panicked effort to protect their interests. It didn't matter. We had truth and leverage on our side. The divorce petition was filed, and the initial shock we delivered at the resort put them on the back foot. Custody and home front. One of my first moves was to ensure stability for our children. Sunday afternoon, after leaving the resort, I picked up Josh and Emily from my sisters and gently explained that Mom and Dad had some problems to work through. I spared them the ugly details, but I made it clear that their mom would be staying elsewhere for now. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. Emily cried, and Josh, perceptive as he is, looked angry and asked if Mom had done something bad. I just told them that we both still loved them very much, and that was what mattered. Internally, I vowed that they would never be used as pawns in this fight. Knowing Lisa might try to spin things, I preemptively emailed her, CCing my lawyer, on Sunday saying that the kids would remain under my care at home for the time being, and that she could arrange visitation once we had temporary custody orders. She didn't reply, but I knew she read it. On Monday, I filed for temporary custody and exclusive use of the house, citing Lisa's absence and the need for stability for the children. Our evidence of her affair and departure helped support the request. By midweek, a judge granted me temporary primary custody and allowed Lisa only supervised visitation until a formal hearing, noting that upheaval in the children's routine, like a parent suddenly leaving for an affair, was detrimental. The house remained mine to live in, at least until final property division. Lisa, effectively, was out in the cold, living at a friend's place, as I later learned, because moving in with Mike so soon would have looked terrible for her case, and Mike's own home life was in shambles anyway. Her reaction to losing interim custody was explosive. She rang my phone off the hook that Wednesday, but I let all calls go to voicemail. One message seethed with anger, then tears. "How dare you keep the kids from me, Jack? I'm their mother, not some criminal. You can't do this. Please call me. We have to talk." I didn't call her back. I forwarded the message to Margaret and we left it at that. I wasn't keeping the kids from her permanently. I was simply ensuring they had stability while she sorted out the mess she'd made. If she wanted to see them, she could do it through proper channels. Financial warfare. The financial front was another area where I struck hard. The very day after serving her, I executed the plan I'd laid out. I transferred half of our joint savings into my new separate account, documenting it thoroughly so a judge would see it was just my share. I also froze our joint credit card to prevent any wild spending sprees. It's a good thing I did. I later discovered Lisa had attempted to book an international flight to get away the day after the confrontation, only to find the card declined. If she thought about running, that option was off the table. When her lawyer demanded an accounting of funds, we provided one, complete with records of the Las Vegas trip charges and other questionable expenditures Lisa had made on joint accounts for her affair. That quickly shut down any argument that I'd been unfair financially. In fact, Margaret made it clear we intended to pursue reimbursement for marital funds spent on the affair. Faced with that prospect, Lisa's side backed off on financial demands, likely afraid a judge might award me even more of the assets due to her misconduct. The smear attempt. Desperate people fight dirty, and Lisa was no exception. Perhaps on Mike's urging or out of her own spite, she attempted a classic smear. A week after the confrontation, I was served with a notice for a court hearing. Lisa was seeking a restraining order against me, claiming I had threatened her and the children. When I read her affidavit, I almost couldn't believe the fiction she'd spun. She alleged that I had a terrible temper, that I'd once grabbed her arm so hard it bruised. I knew she was referencing a minor argument months ago where I gently pulled her aside. There was no bruise. And worst of all, she falsely claimed the children were afraid of me because I yell and intimidate. My blood boiled reading those lies. This was a blatant attempt to gain leverage. If she got a restraining order, she might angle for the house or full custody claiming abuse. But I was prepared. In our temporary custody hearing just days prior, none of those accusations were raised, which made her sudden claims suspicious. Moreover, I had character witnesses ready, two of our closest mutual friends, one of whom had actually seen Lisa and Mike together at a cafe weeks earlier and quietly tipped me off, were willing to testify on my behalf. They knew me as a devoted father and had never seen any indication of violence. The hearing for the restraining order was, frankly, a disaster for Lisa. Her own father, whom I'd kept respectfully informed about the general situation, came to court and sat on my side. Lisa's face went red with anger or embarrassment, probably both seeing that. She told her sob story to the judge about feeling unsafe, but it was thin. My lawyer calmly presented our evidence, the timeline of events showing I discovered her affair, giving me a credible reason to be angry but not violent. Phone records showing I wasn't even around during some incidents she fabricated, and even a written statement from our 14-year-old Josh. We hadn't wanted to involve the kids, but Josh, protective of me, had insisted on writing a short note to the judge saying, "Dad never hurt any of us. He's the one who takes care of us." I had tears in my eyes reading that, but it was submitted quietly as evidence. When my attorney revealed the existence of the affair, supported by the video and photos, which we offered to show the judge in private if needed, Lisa's lawyer visibly cringed. The judge's demeanor shifted. It was clear he saw what was going on. He sternly admonished that custody matters shouldn't be muddied with unrelated allegations without solid evidence. In the end, the restraining order was denied, and the judge even warned Lisa that false allegations could harm her credibility in the divorce and custody case. Lisa left the courtroom that day looking utterly defeated, and I walked out feeling vindicated. I hadn't wanted to destroy her, but I also wasn't going to allow her lies to stain my reputation or take my kids. Mike's downfall. On the parallel track, Mike Caldwell was dealing with the collapse of his own world. Karen did not go easy on him. From what I heard through the grapevine, her lawyers filed for divorce immediately and hit him with an aggressive settlement proposal. She also wasn't shy about the reason. Their country club circles and business associates soon learned of Mike's infidelity. One local business blog even ran a short piece titled "Caldwell Cadillac Owner in Divorce Scandal," noting rumors of an affair. It was a small embarrassment in the grand scheme, but for a man like Mike, whose image was carefully managed, it was a harsh blow. Customers whispered, employees gossiped. A group of us, mutual friends who had sided with me, may have even leaked a photo of Mike and Lisa at the resort to a private Facebook group from which it spread subtly among the community. Nothing that would get me sued, just enough to ensure people knew the truth of his character. Mike's reputation wasn't the only thing taking a hit. Karen's attorneys were carving out her share of their assets with razor precision. Arizona might be a community property state, but with the evidence of his misconduct, Karen had leverage to negotiate a bit more. In the end, I learned she got their Scottsdale house, a hefty cash settlement, and full ownership of some investments that Mike had idiotically put in both their names. Mike had to buy himself a penthouse condo in the city after vacating their home. Poetically, that condo was a far cry from the mansion he'd once shown off, and rumor had it he had to sell off one of his dealerships to fund the divorce payout and keep his business liquidity. As for Lisa and Mike's relationship, unsurprisingly, the stress of our combined counterattacks strained it to the breaking point. In the immediate aftermath of being served, they clung to each other. They had little choice, having alienated everyone else. Lisa moved into that new condo with Mike initially, likely thinking she'd won some prize after all. A luxurious new life. But luxury was fading. With Karen cutting him off and his finances squeezed, Mike wasn't quite the high roller he had been. And under pressure, their united front cracked. I got this information secondhand through one of Lisa's friends, one who did not approve of her cheating and thus stayed friendly with me. Apparently, fights between the illicit lovers became frequent. Mike was bitter at how much he lost and, according to the friend, he even snapped at Lisa one day, calling her ruinous and accusing her of costing him his marriage and money. She, in turn, was heard yelling that he had promised to take care of her and now she had nothing but a shameless reputation to show for it. The irony was not lost on me. Their affair started with fantasies of a perfect life together. It ended up with them blaming each other for the wreckage they wrought. Closing the divorce. My own divorce case with Lisa ground on for about 3 more months, but after her failed smear attempt and the mountain of evidence against her, her side's resistance collapsed. There were a few perfunctory battles in mediation. She initially demanded half of everything plus spousal support. But given that she was employable, she had that part-time job and could go full-time, and, notably, that she was cohabitating with Mike by then, Margaret argued she had financial support available and didn't need alimony. The kicker was when Margaret quietly mentioned to Lisa's attorney that if they pushed for spousal support, we'd subpoena Mike's financial records and possibly involve his company as part of discovery, to show her living situation. That threat of further humiliation was enough. The request for alimony was dropped. In the end, we reached a settlement that was very close to what I'd wanted. I kept the house. I agreed to pay Lisa a modest sum for her half equity, a sum largely offset by what she owed me for the money she spent on her affair trip, and a few other expenditures the lawyers labeled as misused funds. I also kept my car and personal savings. She got to keep her car and a small savings account in her name. We split the remainder of joint assets about 70-30 in my favor, given the circumstances. Her lawyer had to concede that a judge might do worse if presented with all her behavior. Custody was formalized with me as primary custodian. Lisa would have the kids every other weekend and Wednesday dinners, contingent on not introducing them to any new paramour without therapy and court approval, a clause Margaret insisted on to prevent Mike from immediately playing stepdad, not that he seemed eager anyway. When we signed the final papers, Lisa looked hollow and emotionally drained. There was no fight left in her. She didn't even make eye contact as she agreed to the terms. Perhaps she realized this was as close to mercy as she'd get. One poignant moment came after the settlement was reached. As we exited the conference room, Lisa softly asked if she could speak to me alone. Margaret gave me a look. It was my choice. I nodded and we stepped aside. Lisa's eyes were red-rimmed. "I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness," she said quietly. "But I am sorry, Jack, for everything. I never meant for it to end like this." I studied the woman I had once loved, trying to feel something, anger, pity, anything. Mostly, I felt relief that our entanglement was finally ending. "I forgave you a while ago, Lisa," I replied, my voice tired but firm. "Not for you, for me. I had to let it go so I could focus on the kids in my life. What you did, that's something you'll have to come to terms with. I just hope you'll be a better mother to our kids going forward. They need at least that." It was perhaps more gracious than she deserved, but it was the truth. Our kids' well-being was my priority. She nodded, tears spilling over. "I will, I promise." She looked like she wanted to say more, maybe that she regretted choosing Mike, maybe that she missed our life. But there was nothing left to say that could change anything. I gave a polite nod and walked away, leaving her standing there in the hallway, wiping her eyes. Walking out of the courthouse after the divorce decree was finalized felt like emerging from a long, dark tunnel. The sun was shining that day, and I tilted my face up to it, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders that had been there for far too long. The war was over, and I had won. Lisa and Mike had lost nearly everything that their affair had been meant to gain. Their marriages were ashes, their finances and reputations deeply scarred. Lisa was a divorced woman with primary custody lost and a tarnished image among our friends and family. Mike was a publicly shamed divorcee whose midlife fling cost him his fortune and standing. Even his adult children from a prior marriage, I learned he had 2 grown kids, were reportedly disgusted with him. As for me, I had my children, my home, and the clear conscience of knowing I fought back with integrity. Well, and a healthy dose of cunning. The scorched earth campaign I waged ensured that neither Lisa nor Mike would emerge unscathed. They wanted to burn down my world for the sake of their happiness. Instead, they burned their own. Rising from the ashes. 6 months later, on a crisp winter evening in Phoenix, I found myself hosting a small gathering at my home, which felt lighter and warmer without the pall of betrayal hanging over it. The occasion? Nothing elaborate, just a simple BBQ and get-together to thank the friends and family who had supported me and the kids through the storm. The backyard was alive with friendly chatter. Josh and Emily were running around with their cousins, laughing and being the kids they deserved to be, the divorce drama slowly becoming a distant memory for them. I watched Emily give an ear-splitting giggle as her uncle, my brother, lifted her onto his shoulders. Josh was excitedly showing off a new skateboard trick to one of his school buddies. Seeing their genuine smiles was everything to me. It meant that despite all the upheaval, they were healing. We all were. By the grill, I flipped burgers and clinked beer bottles with my friend Ray, a fellow trainer who had covered my sessions on days I had court and who had my back throughout. My sister was inside slicing up a cake she'd brought, chatting with, surprisingly, John and Marlene, Lisa's parents. Yes, my former in-laws were here too, by their own request. In the aftermath of everything, they had been furious with their daughter's actions. John, a typically stoic man, had called me after the divorce was finalized to apologize on his family's behalf. It wasn't necessary, but I appreciated it. They doted on their grandchildren, and I wasn't about to sever that relationship out of spite. If anything, our bonds had strangely strengthened. They saw how well I was caring for the kids under difficult circumstances and were grateful. Marlene had tearfully told me, "You'll always be family to us, Jack." It meant a lot. Nearby, I spotted Karen Caldwell chatting amicably with my sister. Karen and I had stayed in touch, developing a respectful friendship out of the chaos. Her divorce from Mike was finalized shortly after mine from Lisa. She got what she wanted and was moving on with her life, even considering a long vacation overseas to find some peace away from Scottsdale gossip. We weren't particularly close, but we checked in on each other now and then. Tonight, I'd invited her as a courtesy and was glad to see her relaxed and smiling as she balanced a paper plate of food. In many ways, she and I had been through the same fire and come out forged anew on the other side. As dusk settled, Ray helped me light up the fire pit. People pulled up chairs around it, faces warm in the flickering glow. Someone made a joke about my newly christened bachelor pad status, and I chuckled, shaking my head. I had zero interest in dating just yet. Rebuilding my life and focusing on my children was more than enough. Still, I couldn't deny a certain optimism flickering within me. That maybe in time I'd be open to finding happiness with someone who truly valued loyalty. But there was no rush. I was content in that moment, just being surrounded by people who cared. At one point, I slipped away from the group and stood at the edge of the yard looking up at the clear night sky. Phoenix's stars twinkled above, and I let myself reflect on everything that had transpired. It astonished me how far we had come. Half a year ago, I was a man shattered. Finding that flash drive had felt like the end of the world, but it wasn't. In many ways, it was a rebirth. It pushed me to shed my naivety, to stand up for myself and my kids in ways I never thought I'd have to. I tapped into a well of strength and cunning I didn't know I possessed, and I fought for what mattered. The pain and anger had long since cooled, like embers turning to ash. In their place was a sense of hard-won peace. I wouldn't say I was happy about what happened. No one marries and starts a family expecting to end up here. But I was grateful that I survived it with the things that mattered intact. I had 2 great kids, a home filled with love, and a bit of chaos, and a future that was mine to shape, free from lies. Behind me, I heard the sliding door open. I turned to see Emily padding over, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Daddy, we're gonna do s'mores now, come on," she said, reaching up to grab my hand. Her face was sticky from marshmallow dip even before the s'mores had begun, likely sneaking treats with Grandpa. I smiled and scooped her into my arms. "The s'mores, huh? I'd better get in on that." As I carried her back to the circle of family and friends around the fire, Josh ran up with a skewer of marshmallows, already on fire and making him yelp in mock panic. Everyone burst out laughing as Ray helped blow it out and stick the marshmallow properly into the flames. I caught John, my former father-in-law, watching me with a gentle expression. He raised his plastic cup in a little toast. "To moving forward," he said quietly as I passed by. It was just for me to hear. I nodded and tapped my bottle to his cup. Moving forward, that was the plan. In that warm moment, surrounded by the people who truly mattered, I felt a profound sense of closure. The chapter with Lisa and Mike was over, burnt to nothing. The way you burn a field to wipe out the blight so new life can grow. The betrayals and schemes had been reduced to ashes, and from those ashes I was rising, stronger and wiser. "Dad, look!" Josh said excitedly as he managed to make a perfect golden brown marshmallow. He held it up like a trophy. I grinned, feeling a swell of pride and affection for my kids that nearly brought tears to my eyes. "Awesome job, bud," I said, giving him a one-armed hug while still holding Emily in the other. This right here was everything, more than any revenge or victory. It was life continuing on, brighter than before. As we all settled under the night sky, sharing stories and sticky s'mores, I realized I had won far more than just a legal battle or a moral victory. I had reclaimed my life. I had shown my children and myself what self-respect and perseverance looked like. In the city named for a phoenix, I had walked through the fire and emerged anew. The past was behind me, reduced to embers on the wind. The future, our future, was a blank canvas, and I was ready to paint it in bold, bright colors. Whatever came next, I knew we would be okay. I had already seen the worst and defeated it. The rest of our lives beckoned, and we would step into it unafraid, rising from the ashes toward whatever dawn awaited us.